Okay, so let me make sure everything's working properly. Make sure you guys can hear me. 1 second, please. Test. Okay, yeah, so it looks like my microphone's working. That's good. So we'll get started. Welcome to day 9 of learning Python. We're approaching the end of the camp. Thank you for joining me throughout the entire thing, but we're not done yet. So we have a couple things to do today. But I know in the past I've been saying it's going to be a shorter camp, but today's going to actually be a lot shorter of a camp because we're going to split up soon and then we'll meet back later again. But anyways, you may have noticed I don't have my camera today, but I will have it for next camp. And yeah, for today, I have a task for you guys. I want you guys to try to complete. It's going to be using a lot of the knowledge we've already learned with Python. There are many ways to, I guess we can call it a challenge, or many ways to approach this challenge. And yeah, so I'll describe the challenge to you guys, and then you guys should think about it for now. I also want to talk to you about something else after we're done with this. And then from there, we'll move on. So anyways, I'm going to tell you the challenge right now. So the challenge is that Bob has a quiz next week on any topic of your choosing. So I said you decide here. So you can choose whatever Bob's having a quiz on. And anyways, besides that, he's struggling to find any good practice online quizzes for the topic that you chose. And he knows that you're a Python program, so he's come to ask you for help. So here are the requirements for the quiz he wants you to build. So this first point I might have to explain a little bit better in case if you're not really familiar with what I mean by this. But anyways, the quiz should only use 2/3 of a larger bank of questions. So if you're in school currently, I believe somebody just joined, so maybe I'll explain it again. So welcome to day 9. But anyways, we're going to be doing a challenge day. But anyways, back to the criteria for the quiz we need to build. The quiz should be only 2/3 of a larger bank of questions. So by that, if you've done a quiz in school maybe, or like an online quiz, your teacher may tell you that she's only pulling out maybe she has a bank of 100 questions and she's only going to use 50 of those questions. So it's going to be randomized on which questions you get. And usually they do that to prevent cheating. But of course, cheating doesn't matter to us because we're actually building the quiz, right? But anyways, we're going to also do something like a cheating prevention, I guess, or to randomize it a bit more to make it harder for Bob if he wants to do it again. So by this, I basically mean this. So let's say we had a bunch of questions. Each question is just going to represent a question mark, okay? So in this case, let's say we have 9 questions. Make sure I have 9 here. 3, 6, 9. Okay. So yeah, we have 9 questions here. Each question represents, or each question mark represents a question. I'm just going to put each one on a new line. So with these 9 questions, if I'm saying we're only going to pull out 2/3 of them, that means in this case, since it's 9, we're only going to pull out 6 questions total. So only this, okay, I guess this is 9. Let me add one more like that. So only these 6 questions are going to be used in the quiz. Meanwhile, other 3 don't actually get used in the quiz. So the user will only ever see these 6 questions. But then if the user goes back and attempts the quiz again, it should be randomized so that maybe instead of seeing these 6 questions, so let's imagine these were their own dedicated questions, this time they only saw these 6 questions, right? So it just keeps pulling out of that bank, and that helps it to prevent cheating, basically, I guess. Also to randomize it so maybe it won't work with your friend. Of course, it's just a practice quiz, but he also requests that we implement this into the quiz. So yeah, the quiz, once again, should only use 2/3 of a larger bank of questions. So if you have 9 questions, the quiz should only use 6 of those, but each time there's a new attempt of the quiz, of course, it should use like a random 6 out of those 9, if that makes sense. After that, after the quiz is complete, the user should receive a grade out of the number of questions, which should then get translated into a letter grade. So by this, I mean the grade out of the number of questions. So once again, it's up to you how many questions your quiz has. If your quiz, let's keep going with the example of 9. So if your quiz has 9 questions, the user only sees 6. It should give them a grade out of how many of the questions they got right and how many of the questions they got wrong. So let's say somebody attempted your quiz on whatever topic you chose and they only got 2 correct. It should display 2 out of 6, right? Because they got 2 out of the 6 questions correct. But then after that, somehow you need to figure out how you want to translate this number or their grade into a letter grade. So by letter grades, I mean stuff like an A plus, B, a B plus, a B minus, C, D, and all that type of stuff, right? So you need to figure out how you can translate it into letter grade. So of course we know that 6 out of 6 is a letter grade. So you might be wondering, like, there are percentages involved, and like, how can we get this to be seen as a percentage? You can get it to work however you want. If you want, you can say like getting a 50% is an A plus, but all you want to do is just make it so that the number grade gets translated into a letter grade. So that's also part of your Python program. And then the final thing he asks from you is that the order of questions, again, now the order of questions you're seeing it in. So not just the questions you're getting, but the order in which you see them should be randomized each time there's a new attempt of the quiz. And yeah, those are pretty much all the tasks Bob asks for. So if you have any questions regarding that, you can put them in chat and I'll try to answer them. I'll try to do a brief example, maybe of something you could do. So for example, since we're deciding on what the quiz is, because I'm not going to force it to be something like math or any specific topic, since we get to decide on what's on, for example, it couldn't even really be like an academic quiz. It could be something like a riddle quiz, okay? So maybe it's like a one-word answer quiz. So you can say like, I'm something and I'm something, what am I? Something like that, a quiz. And then the user has to type in one word. Or it can be multiple choice. So the user gets multiple choices. Or it could be true or false. Or it could be anything, really. Just, yeah, it could be literally anything you want it to be, as long as you think you can do it. Or not as long as you think you can do it, as long as you want to do it. So yeah, so once again, it's the topic we choose. So we choose whatever we want. So you choose whatever you want it to be on. It can be math if you want. It can be, yeah, I think I made it clear. It can literally be anything, a riddle, true or false. Yeah, there's no format for how the quiz should be either. It's just simply a quiz. So however you want your quiz to be. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. What I recommend for a number of questions, although you can do as many as you want, I recommend 9, just because that works better with choosing a bank, right? And that way you'll only actually end up ever having to use 6 of those questions. And yeah, so I'm not going to show you guys how to do this next camp. Pretty much what's the plan for today is that I'll have you guys, or you guys will try to work on this throughout the week, and I'll also work on this and on what's called next camp. We'll go through possible solutions, and maybe we'll look at each other's if we share our work with each other, so we can go test out different people's quizzes and see what we've built. Because once again, we're probably going to have different solutions to doing this, because once again, there are many possible ways you can go about doing this. And yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see what we've done. So besides just talking about this, I'll leave this on the screen, but besides just talking about this, you guys might have a lot of questions about Python and what we've been doing recently in these camps. So you already know that this is the Python beginner camp, and this is like a standard camp for learning Python and what we're doing. And you also may be wondering about like graphic interfaces and things like that, because that's something I was curious about when I first started with Python as well. Because what you've noticed is that we've just been working within that shell, and we've just been seeing text outputs like that. But of course, all the applications we use, or most of the applications we use, they're not text-based and they're not based in a shell, right? So how do we go about actually getting those things with a graphical interface? So in this course, we don't actually cover doing that really. We don't cover getting a graphical interface, but we cover learning Python. And once you've learned Python, doing stuff like that is just basically extending your knowledge to do exterior things. So pretty much what I can tell you is that pretty much everything else, like you want to do with Python. So if you want to do something like, this is just going to be outside of this. Let me get this out of the way. So if you want to do something like, just, sorry, press enter a couple more times. If you want to do something like machine learning, or you wanted to see how like people, because you hear all the great stuff being done with Python, right? Like machine learning, so like developing artificial intelligence. You hear about like web scrapers, like online bots that scrape things off the web. You hear about games, of course, games being built with Python. You hear about, what else? You hear just a lot of stuff, like Python being used for what's it called? What's the word? Science, data science. Yeah, you hear Python being used for just a lot of different things. So pretty much to go do all these things with Python, what you're probably wondering, because like we haven't covered really any of this. We haven't covered machine learning at all, right? We haven't covered any of this. But pretty much this is just modules in Python that are used to accomplish things like this. We use modules to accomplish goals like this usually. So if you want to go into machine learning with Python, you're going to have to pick up some modules that are dedicated to machine learning. So stuff like if you have questions actually on like maybe you're trying to do something with Python or like a field you want to go into, I might know some like modules you should go do research on and try to learn. But in this camp, we're just learning the basic Python. So like just writing the basic stuff. And then all this stuff is like more, I wouldn't say third party, but just more like extra stuff on top of it, which you most commonly hear about. So all this stuff is like usually in modules. So for example, for like machine learning, the modules that are like very popular for that are like TensorFlow and PyTorch and stuff like that. And then for web scrapers, it's other things like Scrapy and Beautiful Soup. And for like building games, modules called Pygame, which there's actually a course on, and some other like other ones too, like Ursina, and there's another one that's very popular. I'm forgetting the name of. But yeah, there's just a lot of modules, and that's what used to go into things like that. So for example, graphic games with graphics, Pygame is a great module. I recommend you go and try to explore. We have a camp on that here. So after this camp's done, if you're interested in learning how to build games with proper graphic interfaces that are very interactive, like the games you probably actually play, I recommend you check out the Pygame course. I'm not the mentor for that course. And yeah, some of these modules require, of course, prior knowledge. So you probably can't just go straight into machine learning. You probably have to learn other stuff outside of that as well, and understand other things since you're doing that. But yeah, so if you have questions, maybe you're trying to do something with Python, not necessarily do something, but like there's something you want to go learn how to do with Python, like something you wanted to do. It's like something you expected to do in this course, maybe that you weren't able to do because you didn't think it was shell-based mainly. You can put your question in chat and I can maybe try to direct you to like a popular module for it if I know one. So yeah, hopefully that is clear. So with that being said, we can actually wrap up the camp. I'll just stay a little bit longer, see if there are any questions regarding this final task, or as well as just talking about those modules and doing other things with Python, like I was saying. Because as we wrap up soon, yeah, you guys are gonna go on your own like journey, right, with Python and stuff. So I can try to help direct you. But anyways, yeah. So any questions at all regarding anything I've discussed? Maybe you have a question about like something you want to do with Python, like a module you need to use or something you need to learn. You can put them in chat and I'll do my best to respond. So let me also actually load up stream on YouTube to make sure everything's working properly. But yeah, let me check chat here. Just 1 second, please. I'm gonna load up the chat on YouTube. Okay, so with that being said, hold on. Actually, let me just get this done. Okay, so it looks like we're good. So yeah, with that being said, I'm just gonna go through this one last time in case if anything was confusing, I didn't explain it well enough. And then we're gonna call that the end of the camp. So next camp, what we're going to do is that we're gonna meet back. We're gonna try reviewing some solutions on how we could do this. And if you have your solutions and you wanna share them, we can also look at yours as well. So once again, this is pretty open-ended and we're probably all gonna have different results and our programs are all gonna be different. But yeah. So yeah, once again, I'll do the basic storyline for what's happening. So Bob has a quiz next week on this is whatever you want it to be. So you could build this up with Bob has a quiz next week on math. He has a quiz next week on riddles, on science, on history, whatever you want. Anyways, he's struggling to find any good online practice quizzes for whatever topic you chose. And he knows that you're a Python program, so he's come to you for help. So he wants you to build a quiz for him, and he has requirements for what the quiz should be able to do, or basically what the program should be able to do, your Python program. So the Python program or the quiz should only use 2/3 of a larger bank of questions, meaning that you should have maybe a possibility of, let's say, 9 possible questions that can be asked, and then only 2/3 of that are actually going to be used. And normally you see this being used to avoid like cheating, and yeah, or just to randomize things and make it a little bit more difficult. So yeah, maybe example, once again, we had a bank of 9 questions. Only 6 of those would be called on. A random 6 out of the 9 would be called on each time. And yeah, so 2/3, whatever size you want. I recommend 9 because you can just do 6 like that and it's like a normal amount for a quiz. And yeah, so then next thing he wants from you is that after the quiz is complete, the user should receive a grade out of the number of questions. So once again, you decide on the number of questions, so I can't put something here. But say the question is out of 6, or you're asking them 6 questions total, they should receive a grade out of the 6 when they're done. So if they get 3 of it right, it should be 3 out of 6. So whatever number that is, that's the easy part. The harder part is that now you need to translate that grade they got into a letter grade afterwards. So if they get 3 out of 6, you need to figure out how you would go about translating this into a letter grade for the user to see. And yeah, so the order of questions should be randomized each time there's a new attempt of the quiz. So let's say question 1 is, well, let's just say we have a bunch of questions gathered up. So this one is A, this one's B, this one's C, like this. These are just, imagine these were like sentences that were questions. These should be randomized in the order each time as well. So maybe B won't always be last or won't always be second. It will always be on top of A. So it's just a randomized order that you see the questions in. So we're randomizing a lot of things here. So randomizing the questions that are used out of a larger bank, and we're also randomizing the order of the quiz. And that is pretty much what Bob asks for. So with that being said, I'm not going to take up any more time because that's pretty much all I had to cover. It doesn't seem like there are any questions. So we're going to call that the end of today's camp. And yeah, we'll meet back on day 10. We'll look at solutions for this. So hopefully we're able to figure it out. If you're not able to figure it out, that's all right. I'll show you maybe how you could have gone about doing it, because I will also prepare a solution for this problem, I guess. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys next camp. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys next Saturday. Bye.